My mum, when I was little, told us everyone's going to know you one day. I got excluded for fighting, and the teacher told my mother I was destined for prison. There's a working class lad who's got no hope in life. I knew that this was my only chance of happiness, and I just pressed that record button. I understand that I'm a good speaker, but it's knowing the game of YouTube. I basically made it to 300,000 subscribers using an iPhone.
Hello, I'm the True Geordie and welcome to the Wembley Cup Final 2016.
A Geordie is a northerner in England, specifically from Newcastle. It's really important that I make Newcastle proud of me. It means a lot. You've got your thing that makes you. For me, it was talking about football, but branch out and challenge yourself as well. Because when you like something and you really give a fuck, is when you're willing to put the extra mile and change your life. It's not about being a millionaire, it's about not being frightened that I'm going to end up back where I was. You don't know the fear I've got in me of being skint, because I'm fucking scared. That's what gets me up in the morning, is being terrified of failure. If you can do something you enjoy, then you've won at life.
This week on the show, we have Brian Davis, aka the True Geordie, and he is a young man from Newcastle who shot to fame in 2013 by posting a football rant video, and he blew up. Since then, he's taken his YouTube channel to the next level, doing more commentary on football, on mixed martial arts, and he started to podcast too. I was even a guest on his show, but it wasn't always this easy. Brian struggled in school when he was a young boy up north in Newcastle. He tried being a deep sea diver, but he could never find out what really worked for him until he found YouTube. And that really was his calling, and he's really going to the next level. I think you're really gonna enjoy my time with him. He's a great lad from the north, and he's going big places for sure. So sit back and enjoy that. And today is the last day of our Business Accelerator enrollment. I'm shutting it down, and I'm spending the next 8 weeks working with entrepreneurs from around the world to take their passion and turn it into a business. I'm gonna show you everything we did, turning London Real from a tiny podcast into a 7-figure global media business. I've got the blueprint. We're gonna hold you accountable. It's gonna be an amazing experience. So click on the link below or go to londonreal.tv/biz, that's B-I-Z. Join me on this amazing process. It's going to be incredible. And now I leave you with the True Geordie.
This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Brian Davis, aka the True Geordie, a 30-year-old Englishman from Newcastle who shot to fame in 2013 with a football video rant that went viral. Since then, you've become massive on YouTube, uploading regular videos about football, MMA, popular culture, and you've created the True Geordie Podcast with your co-host, Lawrence McKenna. In it, you have long-form conversations with fascinating guests, including me. I was there a few weeks ago. I had an amazing time with you guys. Welcome to London Real.
Great to finally be here, mate. I think I'm one of your longest viewers.
You were watching us back in the day, back in Dorian Yates 1, right? That was right around 2013.
Yeah, I trained with Dorian just beforehand, so I was like, I knew the beast that was about to enter London Real, but I didn't realise how intelligent he was. Like, I got a good idea of it from his training and that, but I didn't realise the spiritual side of him and all of that. So when he came on, I think I was one of the people who was expecting big things more so than the average person, but even I was blown away. And then I was just a fan. That was it.
Because you would train with him, you were probably following him on Twitter or something, and then he tweeted it out, and you were like, okay.
Things are going to get real. I thought, all right. I was tempted to tweet that out myself, actually.
Really?
Just to copy him, but I thought,
reference.
just too much even for me.
I still remember that tweet, and I remember we were in here, and I was like, oh shit, he's going to bring it, and he did, as you saw. So talk to people about what is the True Geordie, because we have people from America and all people around the world that might not know who the True Geordie is. What is the True Geordie Podcast now? If you had to describe the state of the union now to you meet some grandma on the street and she says, what do you do, Brian? What do you tell them?
I am a working class lad from Newcastle, and I'm a no bullshit kind of person. And I just went on the internet and put out my views, and people seem to like them. A Geordie is a northerner in England.
Is it northerner or one from Newcastle?
It's specifically from Newcastle.
Okay.
And I just speak my mind, and particularly I think like young men gravitate towards me because I sort of say what a lot of probably people my age are thinking, but just don't say it on the internet. And sometimes I go a bit too far, and sometimes I say some things that maybe I shouldn't say. But yeah, that's me, mate.
Okay, and 2013 was that first upload? Well,
yeah,
okay.
it was a rant about a footballer called Niall Ranger, who I'm now going to be associated with for the rest of my life.
Is he going to be on your show one day?
Well, I thought about it, but unfortunately, he can't get his shit together. He keeps fucking up and getting locked up and all that again. But he was a Newcastle player who came out and said that the fans shouldn't boo the team, And I just lost a friend of mine who was a huge Newcastle United fan, and it was emotional, like watching a young lad pass away. And I remember his funeral was all about how much he loved Newcastle United, and I just remember thinking, God, like these players get worshipped so much that a close friend of mine's funeral wasn't really about him as much as it was about how much he loved the local football team. So when he came out and said that about the fans, this footballer, I was pretty upset about my mate dying, a lot of pent up shit, and I just pressed that record button, and I basically said, one of the quotes was, you think you're a gangster rapper holding that gun, I hope you shoot that gun and you're better than you do the football because you're fucking shit. And I just basically laid into him, and I was that crazy football fan who everyone points and probably laughs at a bit. But I sort of, in doing that, I had a bit of a light bulb go off, and I was like, there's something to this. Like, people want to hear what I've got to say. And it took us a while to hone that into what I've made it into, because I was a bit like, what do I do? I understand that I'm a good speaker and I can talk to a camera better than most, but it's knowing the game of YouTube. And that took me a couple of years to really get to grips with. But once I did, now I'm unstoppable now, as far as I'm concerned.
It's rolling now. Good. And I want to find out some of the moves you're making now. But like going back to that, I watched that video today, and there was a little something there. It wasn't just a guy ranting about football or that player, even though he was kind of disrespecting the fans. Like, now that you said you lost somebody, because there's something really deep going on inside you in that video.
Well, if that was just about football, that was a massive overreaction. And I'm capable of that as well, to be honest. But that kid, I used to play football on the field with him regularly, and he was a gentle giant. He was the type of lad that you'd want your sister to marry, just a decent guy. And I just took it personally. Like, I'm like, shut the fuck up. Like, and to be fair to the guy, the footballer, he didn't know I was going to do it. He probably just thought it was some nut job. But sometimes I think footballers generally should respect the fans more. And that was sort of the angle that came in on YouTube.
Yeah. Talk to me about the institution of football, especially, explain it to people around the world what it's like in the UK and what's it like up in Newcastle where you grew up. I mean, you just said you had a mate of yours, and at his funeral, the funeral was almost about the football team. What is it? Is it like a religion up there?
In Newcastle it is.
Okay.
It's specifically, like in London, you get into a taxi and the cab driver say, you're a football fan, especially with me because I usually wear football shirts, but you get the odd conversation in London, but in Newcastle, if you were in a pub a taxi, anywhere where there's just working class men particularly, everything is about football all the time, everywhere. It's no other city in the country is like Newcastle.
Why is it that way?
I think when you haven't got a lot, like, and not that Newcastle is a poor area, but it is a working class area, and there's a lot of people who don't have a lot. You cling to your football team. You want that excitement. You know, if you're working hard all week, seeing your team win, it gives you a massive buzz, a massive lift. You're out with the lads. We're all cheering the team on. It's a family ritual. Like, the dad takes the son to the football as soon as he's 6, 7, 8 years old. This is your team, son. Get used to it. We're crap, but we're going to support them anyway. And it's a huge part of the place.
It's tribal. And it is almost like a religion.
Yeah.
Go every Sunday, or, you know, it becomes this. You have the colors, you have the history, the players. It's something that it's part of your life.
And the father and son thing's got a lot of answer for as well, to be honest.
That's big.
It's getting harder for fathers for dads to take their sons to make watch Newcastle play, because now I think there's not as much identity as there was, but that's a whole nother story.
Okay. Well, speak on that a little bit, because when I first got here in '97, I read this book that, you know, everybody in the world read, which was Among the Thugs, right? And it was all about hooliganism, British football, but it was more fascinating that there was this culture of people that, like, were so dedicated to these teams. And I remember reading it, and I was like, okay, that's interesting, and I went to a couple matches, but I could never really understand it. But that's kind of a factor that it used to be kind of a working man's sport, and then it grew into this global, you know, expensive sport. Can you just speak on that, like, briefly, for people that don't understand the history?
It's gone from something that, you know, men used to take their kids to I guess they'd say the prawn sandwich brigades turned up. You know, it's become a business. People, you know, are buying clubs. Qatar are now, like, the Airways they're the ones making transfers. You know, it's not club to club. Companies are involved in this now. It's almost lost its soul, I'd say, football, to be honest with you.
Okay. And what do you remember from your early days? Were you know, did your dad take you? Were you?
My mother did, actually, a single mother, and for my birthday, she took us to the Newcastle match, and I was already a big Newcastle fan, but that was my first game. And the hometown hero just signed, Alan Shearer, who I've since met, actually, and he scores the winning goal, just the movie moment, like, it was, and that was it. Like, I knew that was it. Like, I love this guy, I love this team, and that's just best moment ever.
When it comes to a hardcore factor of 1 to 10 of, like, you and, you know, Newcastle, where are you?
I don't think I'm the most hardcore fan at all, to be honest with you. I love the team, but there are, like, diehards who travel the length of the country every single week who I can't do that. I'm committed to. I have to work weekends. You know, I miss a lot of Newcastle games, but I watch as many as I can. But I'll watch all the games, but I can't be there a lot of the time because of my job. So I would say I'm about a 5 out of 10, to be honest. There are a lot. I'm just the guy who happened to get lucky. Do you know what I mean?
Okay. And what about football hooligans? Do they still exist? Or is that something that was really more of the past? And when people around the world watch it, a lot of times they don't understand it, maybe because they don't realize it's such a huge part of the culture in certain towns.
Well, it definitely still exists, but it's different to what it used to be, I think, yeah. You know, my dad was a bit of a football hooligan back in the day. But
which means that you kind of travel with your team to away games, and then there's kind of fights and
there's
rivalries.
Different reasons. I think some lads are, like, really passionate about the club, and then they like a scrap as well. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Whereas some lads are just there for the scrap. But I think in the Russia World Cup that we're about to see, that's going to be interesting, because I'm expecting a few moments on YouTube through that, like.
Because the Russian fans are hardcore, British are as well.
There'll be chairs getting thrown and everything.
Okay, are those the two nations that are going to go out?
No, I'm just expecting it, yeah.
Okay.
Particularly because of Russia. No offense to any Russians watching.
Okay. What other nations are that passionate?
I don't know. Like, I think there's a lot. Like, Ireland and all that. Like, they get right into it generally. But football hooliganism, it isn't what it was. There's definitely. I think it's calmed down personally, but there's just a few small factions.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Okay. Just a couple more things on Newcastle before we go on. It's in the north, and, like, a lot of towns in the north, they got hit hard in the Thatcher era, and a lot of the business, you know, a lot of the industry dried up, and so you're talking about it being a working class place. What is the difference between the north and the south? Have you had to explain to someone who doesn't live in this country?
So I interviewed a plastic surgeon not long ago who works on all the celebrities, and I met him on the train down, actually, Dr. Esho, and he has a surgery in Newcastle and a surgery in London. And I asked him the same question, and he nailed it. He said, when I go to my surgery down south, everyone's reading the magazines, waiting to be seen. When I go up north, everyone's talking to each other, saying, what you haven't done. And even though it's women, it sums up. Like, we're just a lot more sociable, a lot more, friendly. There's much more of a community vibe there. No, in London, no one talks to each other pretty much. Do you know what I mean? If you don't know someone, you're not likely, because there's so many people in the city, to have a chat. And I think, unless you sit in a cab or something, but Newcastle, I absolutely love Newcastle. Like, and I'll never ever move away from there completely. Like, ever, even if I have to work in London, I still get the train now. It's really important to me that I make Newcastle proud of me, and I represent people of Newcastle. Like, it means a lot, to be honest. Like, and I know not a lot of other YouTubers are like that about where they're from. But with me having Geordie in my name and that, and generally, like, when I drive around Newcastle and people say hello to us, like, I want to make them proud. I want to go on and achieve things, and for people to say, "Oh, he's all right, he's from Newcastle. I'm proud of him." Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Are you the most famous Geordie at this point?
No. There's another YouTuber from Newcastle, but he's not like. I don't think he's
not like you.
Like, what's the word? There's Will and he's a good friend of mine,
okay.
But he's not like as about Newcastle as a city as the way I am. I think in his videos, do you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
He's more like, he does a lot of comedy stuff, but generally, I want to be up there. When people think of Newcastle, Alan Shearer, Cheryl Cole, Anton Dick, I want people to put me in that list, because if they don't put me in that list, then I haven't done my job properly.
Mm. Do you get recognized all the time on the street?
A fair bit, especially with young lads. But it's great. I don't mind that at all.
Okay. Who's your typical demo? You said young lads. Who watches your stuff on YouTube?
I'd say like 13. The thing is, it's weird because I call it grown man content because I feel like that's what I make. But 13-year-olds and 12-year-olds, I gravitate towards that because I suppose I'm like the big brother type, and lads that are my age and older gravitate towards because they're like me. So I'd say, like, I don't know, young teenage lads, mainly, all the way up to like 40-year-old men plus. I've had a 65-year-old man approach me in a gym before and be like, "I love your videos, mate." So
okay.
I suppose it just depends, really.
And YouTube gives you your breakdown, so you can tell pretty quickly in real time.
Yeah, we've got like over 45 to 50, I think, like 10% plus over that, like.
Okay. Okay. And talk to me about Alan Shearer. I know you got his picture of you pinned on your Twitter right now. You saw him score that goal when your mom took you to the first game?
Yeah, the first game.
So is he such a huge figure? Is that why he's always been, a big thing for you, or is it because he scored that goal? And for people that don't know who he is, how would you introduce him?
He was the guy who could have played for any club in the world and chose Newcastle. And this is where he's born. So, like, for Newcastle fans, it's like, you could have gone anywhere, but you stayed with us despite what a shy team we are. And he was the world record fee at the time. Like, it was the biggest transfer signing of that era. And he's just a symbol in Newcastle. Like, I didn't have a close relationship with my dad growing up, and he was that, like, role model for me. Like, all right, you can be from here and you can achieve something, do you know what I mean? So I always looked up to him, as most lads in Newcastle did. And when I met him, for him to know who I was before I introduced myself, and I was like, all right, and he was very nice to us, and it was just a good moment for me to think, because I was in the south of France at the time, because I'd been asked to go there to speak at something, and I'm like, fucking hell, what a life. I'm in the south of France because of my job, and I'm having a chat with him, and it was quite a surreal moment. Yeah. So it was like a marker, a pinpoint of like, this is what is achievable.
Okay. So now you're on your way to 1 million subs, millionaire. This all stuff's all happening probably in the next year or so.
I don't know about millionaire in the next year, but we're getting as quick as we can.
Okay, a couple of years. Talk to me about Brian in the earlier days, because 4 years ago you uploaded that video, and you've obviously come into your own, and I want to hear about how you became better on camera and YouTube and all that stuff. But, what's 14-year-old Brian like?
Covered in spots, addicted to porn, really struggling at school, quite violent, just full of anger, testosterone fueled, just struggling generally to work out what the heck. I mean, I think I wanted to be a doctor at the time. I thought, I don't know, I'll help people. I'd like to help people. That's a good thing. And I was up against it with the school teachers because I was intelligent, but I didn't fit into the system of school, because I think school, a lot of it isn't really an intelligence test as much a memory test. How can you memorize that this textbook and then regurgitate it onto a bit of paper? And I just wanted to be inspired. I wanted to, something to grab us by the balls, to be honest, and like make us want to learn. And I'm the type of person who, if I find something interesting, I'll be an expert at it. If I'm not really into it, I'll just discard it completely. And that type of personality is never going to really succeed in school. So the things I did, like English, I quite enjoyed that. I got A's in English and I really found that quite easy. But things like, French, I got a D in that, do you know what I mean? Even though my French teacher had a big arse, it just wasn't enough for us.
And where do you think the anger come from? Because is it, father not there? Is it the tone of Newcastle at the time?
In my mind, I hated being talked down to, and naturally people talk down to teenage kids.
Okay.
And I was like, who the fuck are you talking to? Like, I just it didn't suit me, personality type. Like, I was this person then, so treat me like the way they did, I was just like, oh, you're gonna fucking learn. I got excluded for fighting and shit like that, and the amount of teachers, like when I was 10 years old, a teacher told my mother I was destined for prison. Repeatedly.
Was she right?
Oh no, luckily not.
Were you a big lump back then as well? Okay.
There was times where I could tell teachers were intimidated by us.
And do they talk down to you or assume you're not intelligent sometimes if you're big?
I think the big lad stigma is, if he's big and strong, he must be dumb, and I had that like from day one. So that was part of it. There was a few teachers that realised, like, there was one maths teacher I remember, like, he was like giving it that, and I just stood up and then looked over him, and he realised, he was like, oh, if this guy wants to fuck me, I literally kind of do nothing about it.
How old are you at this point?
I was 15 at that
15,
point. I was
okay.
6'2", 15 stone. Like, I was a problem at that age.
Okay, so you're 10 years old, they said you might go to prison, and then more trouble with teachers, but you stayed in school.
Luckily, yeah, thanks to me mum. My mum did her absolute best, but she understood, like, that was just my personality type. Like, you just can't, it's like, how in a zoo, you'll get 4 lions who'll all do the trick for the bit of meat, but then you'll get that one lion who might just bite your fucking head off, and I was just untrainable. Like, I was not interested, unless I wanted to do it. Right. You can't force me to do something I don't want to do. I'd rather die.
Right. Did you have brothers and sisters?
No.
So kind of you and your mom against the world, and she's probably busy working as well.
Yeah, as well, yeah. She was like, my goal in life was to make her proud, pretty much. Like, that was it. And I knew I wasn't doing that, so I knew I had to sort of get me act together. And I realised, all right, what we're going to do here. So I tried college, had problems in college again. I had a teacher, ironically, who was a journalist for a Newcastle United magazine. And he said I would never amount to anything. He's a Newcastle United journalist. I'm not going to name him, but he definitely fucking knows I've amounted to something now.
And it bothers you that these people said these things. You do want to prove them wrong, don't you?
I'm very much motivated by that, yeah. But I don't take it, I don't like think about them and hate them. I'm amused by it, because it's like, I just log it and I'm like, I'm going to fucking watch you on the way down, mate. Like, because I get enjoyment by that, definitely.
Okay, by showing people that they were wrong about you.
Yeah.
Or do you get enjoyment about beating them?
No, because once I beat them in my head, like once I feel like I've won, I don't gloat, I don't tweet them, I don't go out of my way to tell them.
Right.
I just trust, it's enough for me to know.
Okay.
You weren't right about me, and that's enough.
So
I'm not I think there's too much enjoyment I had about life to be worrying about them after the fact.
Okay.
But in the meanwhile, it's just a nice,
right.
See you later.
And that's the fuel that motivates you to get up every day and work harder than anybody else in the space.
I don't think that's the fuel.
But it must be something, right?
My fuel, so there was a point where I ended up, we're skipping forward, but there was a point where I ended up with not a lot of money, struggling. I mean, I'm talking about can I afford bread and milk? Like, this is in between my career in YouTube.
Right.
So I can tell you about
we'll get to that. Let me just finish up the teenage years. Do you think not having that father figure around seeded some anger too, because my parents got divorced when I was 7, and I didn't know how to compute, and I just got angry, as in everything I had been told was kind of the way the world was, all of a sudden was ripped out from under me. But do you think that had anything to do with it or not?
Yeah, a little bit, definitely. I was an arsehole, and what I needed, do you know, I know that they don't say that this is a good thing, but I needed a dad who was there, who when I spoke to my mum like shit, would kick the fucking shit out of us, to be quite honest, because that's what I needed. Or a good hard slap at the very least. I needed someone to fear, because I was the alpha from such a young age, that I just felt no one could tell me nothing. And so as much as I was wanting to prove people wrong, some people were a bit right about this, because I did look like I was heading that way, but they didn't take enough of an interest to say that, well, what's actually going on with this kid? Is this kid actually intelligent? Is he just frustrated at the system that he's being put in? But I definitely needed a dad to give us a good hard slap, do you know what I mean? And maybe teach us a bit about how to conduct myself and act.
Okay. Did you ever find that male figure in your life?
I became that male figure, to be honest with you. I realised what I needed, so I became that person. And now I'd like to think, even though I say things that maybe people say, you've overstepped them up, I generally try and be that guy towards especially the young lads who watches. So I'm trying to sort of pay it forward a bit.
Okay. Because I asked you a few questions before the show, and like the one thing you said is, I kind of was like, why are you here? And you said, I really want to inspire those young lads, that are watching. Mm-hmm. And that's not the first thing I would have expected you to say. So that really is important to you.
Massively, yeah. It's sort of emotional, to be honest with you, because they are changing my life, and I want to change theirs as well. And I know I've got girl followers as well. It's not all about the lads, but I feel like the lads have taken this to their hearts a lot. So I just want to, I've got no real interest in talking about myself, and it's not really about that. But I know if people see how fucked up I was, and that I've made a decent show of myself, that they can as well. I'm not here for an ego massage like a lot of people come in here for, to be honest with you. I want to use this, what we're doing right here, to put this out.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
For them.
And the thing is that they make you keep your game strong, right? Because you can't let them down, right? You can't put that thing out, that video that was off-brand, off-message. What are they going to think? I mean, it really helps you step your game up even more. I
really care about that. We've done a deal recently, and I've worked really hard on getting sponsors, and I've been honest with them, and I've told them from day one, I'm dying for a sponsorship. To be honest, I was skint for a long time doing YouTube at the start, especially, and they appreciate that honesty, and I just try and be as real as I possibly can. But yeah, the worst thing any YouTube fan could say, who I knew was a proper die-hard, been with me for a while, is you've let me down, you fucked up, you're not who I thought you were. Mm-hmm. And that would be, I'd genuinely fucking gutted if that, more than anything.
The next few years will be interesting, because as you get bigger, things change.
I've had a few people say it's going to be interesting, one of that friend I mentioned here, a few people said it's going to be interesting to see how you handle being compromised. And I've already almost been I'm worried about putting videos out recently, so.
Okay, well, we'll get to that. Talking about the teenage years, what was that transition that got you on a different path, or did it stay down that path?
I felt really shit about myself for a while, to be honest. When I was doing I got an apprenticeship, and I just remember every day I'd get 2 buses to go to this job where I was working as an apprentice engineer. And I was
18, 19?
Yeah, 17.
Okay.
And I was doing a job where I was intelligent enough to do the job, but I just wasn't very good at it. And I'm wondering, why am I not getting into this? I've got other lads who I feel like if we sat and did an English, maths, science exam, I'd blow them out of the water, but they seem to just be getting on. And I just, I didn't know it at the time, but I'm a creative. I need to be creatively inspired. And I just felt like I'm just doomed. I'm fucked. I'm going to do this job, and I'm just going to be average at it. And I looked around, and I looked at the other guys who were doing the job, and I thought, I need to roll the dice. And there's one thing that I've done throughout my life is when things aren't working, I just look in the mirror and say, all right, this isn't working. We've got a really short window here, as a young man, I just need to roll the dice as many fucking times as I can before I'm 30 until something works. Because I've seen other lads who are good mates of mine who they were happy and they didn't need to roll the dice. But even if they weren't happy, they wouldn't have had the balls to roll the dice either. So I'm sitting there thinking, let's just go something else. I'm miserable. I can't have a miserable life. And one thing my mum always put into us was, you know, if you're not happy, try something else. And not in a bottle job kind of way. You know, give it a good go. But if you really give it your best and you're still not happy, then make a change. So after engineering didn't work out after a couple of years of that, you know, I was in a bit of in limbo. Where the fuck do I go? Tried college again, and then I seen a YouTube video that said deep sea diving. I'm like, well, that sounds like James fucking Bond shit. That I could get into that. It had the music. It just looked, and I'm like, I want to do this. Then they talk about the money these guys earn, £1,000 a day. I'm like, I could do that, definitely. And I'm like, no hope at the moment. I'm feeling shit about myself. Self-confidence is rock bottom.
You're like 23, 24?
Yeah, 22, something like that. I'm thinking, oh, yeah, I'm going to roll the dice again. Give it some of that. Let's try this. They were saying, like, it helps if you've got engineering skills. I'm like, I've got engineering skills. I could do this. And I remember my mum saying, but I thought you didn't want to sort of do a job like that. But I was so like, I'm desperate. Like, I just need to fucking try something. That I made sort of the same mistake twice, really, with the engineering and then going to diving. Because little did I know at the time, a lot of what I was going to be doing it was cool at first. You're going underwater, but it's underwater labouring, and that is still pretty cool, and the money's great. But I misinterpreted the whole industry.
Okay, it was sold as like this exotic dream, and it was manual labor underwater, but dangerous.
You can get to that level where it is £1,000 a day, and there's guys I still keep in touch with to this day who are like, they're very intelligent, very hardworking lads and are killing it. But when you first go in, what they don't tell you is like, it's who you know. It's one of those industries, like most industries are. You start off on the same wage as you'd be in a fucking call center, you know, like, and I'm grafting me balls off 12 to 15 hours every day, no days off. I remember I did 70 days solid of night shift, right? Building a fucking pier. You get, when you're a young kid, when you're a young kid as well, you get taught to like shit, like, and I just misinterpreted what I was getting myself involved in.
It's dangerous.
It is, yeah, and it is dangerous. I mean, I've seen guys nearly die there, and you know, the camaraderie was fun, the banter was great, and part of why I am the way I am now, I think, in front of a camera and doing 2-hour podcasts, and that is, you know, I used to sit and entertain the lads for 12 hours on a boat with waves coming over the side, 2 hours, just a nice little cup of tea involved, and it is like a piece of piss, do you know what I mean? Because it's the same banter I've always been doing, and that with the lads. But I met some great friends, and I learned a lot, and I've got some decent stories out of it, and I wouldn't change it. But in retrospect, like, my mum remortgaged the house to put me through that, and I didn't deliver. Like, I earned the money back and whatever, but if I could have done YouTube then, I'd be way ahead of where I am now, because the window, the people were piling into YouTube by the time I'd finished diving, and I'd just accidentally fallen into YouTube. And I feel like if I'd started then, I'd be out of sight. I'd be at God knows how many subscribers by now.
Gotcha. So that was 2 years of diving.
No, I did diving for a good few years.
Okay.
You know, I met some lads I had classes like me brother practically. You know, like I still keep in touch with them to this day. When I first did the Nile Ranger video, it was one of my pals from diving, because I deleted it. I was like, too many people are watching this, I better fucking delete it. I'm going to end up one of that idiot. Do you know what I mean? My mate was like, look, you're brilliant, and just re-upload it. So I deleted it at 10,000 because he said, and then when he said re-upload, I went, all right then. And I still keep in touch with him to this day.
And so you're the life of the party on these ships with the waves crashing over. Were you always that guy?
Yeah, so I was just an average diver. In fact, I had a really hard start because I went into this school that sold it, we will make you an amazing premium diver. Take your 30 grand, mate, you know, and they don't teach you how to do anything underwater. They teach you how to get in the water. Now, luckily, I had a bit of experience engineering-wise, But when I went on my first job, it took us that long to get the job. I'd forgotten half of the shit they told us because it's a hard industry to get into. And my first dive, I mean, I'm underwater and I'm like, what the fuck? I don't know where I was, what I was doing. I'm panicking. I'm hyperventilating properly here. I'm like, and the lads get us out, luckily, and they were like, sorry, it's not the first time anyone's had a shocker dive, especially it's your first one out of school. But I was embarrassed and I was like, oh, what a shit show that was. I got better. I made a really good friend who's a former Navy diver who really brought us on and taught us a lot. But by the time he'd sort of really put time and effort into it, I was making the Nile Ranger video and deciding to call it a day.
Okay, so you weren't the best diver, but you were still entertaining and they kept you around.
The lad, I would have always got work in diving because I made people laugh. And when you make people laugh in life, it's surprising how far you can get.
And did that happen when you were a teenager in high school as well, making people laugh?
I was a class clown, completely and utterly the class clown. I just I've always wanted to make people laugh. It's a buzz. I like that. I can make that happen.
But no comedy, never stand-up comedy.
No, I never really. I think that most stand-up comedians are shit, to be honest with you. Like, I look at most of them, I think, I could go on the fly and be funnier than a lot of you lads. Like, and I think to myself, you've been doing this for 6 months, practicing this one bit. You know what I mean? That's why I haven't had a comedian on the show. I'll get Ricky Gervais on my show, but most of these average comedians, not interested. I think I'm pretty decent lad when it comes to the band.
All right, talking about the hard times, no food, no bread, no whatever. Did that come afterwards? And
yeah,
what was that like? I mean, if you can really take me there. In
between diving and doing this video, and then doing the video and being a YouTuber, yeah, I was I'm not going to say depressed, because depression, in my opinion, is a condition that's in the brain and it's a medical thing. But I was as low as you can get, you know, like. Honestly, mate, few tears, few like really down days where I'm like, where the fuck do I go in life? I'm not happy with what I've been doing. I don't want to go back there. Bills are coming in. You're having to rob Peter to pay Paul, as they say. You know, move cash around. There was one day I was like, I literally haven't got any money. Like no money, £0, and I knew that like the rent was due and shit like that, and it was rock bottom, like, to be honest with you. I had been partying a lot before then as well, and there was points where I was a fucking wreck. Like, I was out of control. I mean, people know what goes on when you're out on nights out and that, and I took it to a fucking extreme. Like, there was one night where I'd come home to a flat I was renting at the time, and I remember I was choking on my own sick in the toilet, and I was like, there's nobody here to save us. And I was like, I genuinely thought I was gonna fucking die.
Wow. Yeah. You thought if you fell asleep you were gonna die, or
I was on a self-destruct pattern. Like, I was literally like, there was so much there in that person, and I kind of feel like it isn't me looking back on it because I've sorted my shit out, but there was a lot there, but there was nothing to harness all of this personality and ability. There was, what do I do with this? I'm not a fucking diver. I'm not an engineer. All the other things I thought about being, I'm not one of them. You know, what do I do? Do you know what I mean? I can't pay the fucking bills. And I'd managed to find enough money to keep going once I started the YouTube thing. I did a video, and I literally did 1 or 2 videos for the rest of the year. My first proper video was January 2013, the Nile Ranger one. Didn't do another.
Were you still in depression around then too? Back up and down?
I mean, I was upset about my friend dying and that, and I was down. I was down, but I wasn't out. I was just feeling really down about, like, just all me dreams and hopes that I wanted from life were fucking, like, this is it, is it?
You're hard on yourself, it sounds like, right? So you're like not performing to where you think you should be, and then drinking and partying is a way to escape your own judgment, maybe, for even a couple hours.
So I'd rolled the dice and I'd fucking failed. So I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I fucked it. And I could have gone back to diving, so it wasn't totally fucked, but I really didn't want to live an unhappy life, and I knew that that was what diving was going to be. And ultimately I would have done, had I not have found YouTube, done that. But I felt like I'd really fucked it, and I I thought I've rolled the dice too much, and I've rolled for the wrong options. And when YouTube came along, it's funny because before I did diving, I remember looking at YouTube thinking, I'd fucking love to do that. I'd love to do that. And I spent so much time because I'd been raised.
Got you diving, right? The YouTube videos. You
Yeah,
were already on the platform.
exactly. But I'd been raised to like, my granddad was someone I did look to at times, and I was into art when I was a kid, and I remember my granddad say, "Are you going to make any money out of that for? You're not going to make money out of that." And I sort of had some of his sort of bad thought patterns ingrained into my head of YouTube. You kind of make money out of that, you know, like unless it's a proper job, you're never going to make money out of your passion. So I sort of, but then I did a couple of videos after the Nile Ranger one, and then I thought to myself, do you know what it is? Fuck it, I'm going to really go for this now. So January 2014, I started making regular videos, and within 3 weeks I had a job offer from a YouTube channel that was enough to pay the bills and get us by, basically.
That's a big moment.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
That's life-changing.
And I owe a fella called Jimmy Conrad quite a bit for that, and he knows I'm grateful because he worked at a channel called Kick TV. They were no longer, they've been bought out now, but he's seen something in me and he was like, yeah, let's give this kid a weekly thing, and that was enough. It was piss poor money, but it was enough to keep me going at the time. It paid for the bread and milk anyway, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and gave you some hope, and then you started to see, wait a second, I can beat this guy. What were those next couple of years like? So you're doing regular videos, you're now starting to understand what YouTube's all about.
The passion was there, and I feel like my talent was there, but I just didn't understand the game of YouTube. And I'm looking at these YouTubers, and I'm like, I'm watching people like KSI and Joe Weller, who I'm now friends with, and I'm like, they're doing really good videos, and I'm sitting here on a fucking table talking to an iPhone. But it was all I had because, like I say, I didn't have a lot of money in that. So I basically made it to 300,000 subscribers using an iPhone because I hung the green sheet up behind us and then got a laptop and managed to key out the green sheet and make it look like it was somewhere like a TV studio. And that was what I did.
So that's like a year or two using an iPhone.
Yeah, 2 years nearly.
Which is crazy because I meet so many people that come over and people in my academy and they're like, yeah, Brian, I'm going to do it as soon as I get the DSLR with the 4K and the na.
I mean, a DSLR doesn't give you personality, mate. I literally, the way I look at it is there is no one else like me on YouTube, and that's going to be what gets me where I need to be. There isn't another me, and I really believed that at the time. And I felt like I watched other YouTubers when they did one take videos, because I was doing everything in one take at the time, and it would be 10, 15 minutes, one take. And I'd watch other YouTubers when they wouldn't edit themselves out, and I'd find it really interesting just to see how good a speaker they are, and I think, nah, not on my level, like, do you know what I mean? They were making content which is now referred to as relevant, whereas I was just talking about football. But once I caught on to the tricks of the trade and the thumbnails and all of that bullshit, then I was like the full package. But it just took us a while, to be honest with you, because I was more concerned about being good at speaking. And what makes you a good YouTuber, in my opinion, is when you can talk right at the camera and be good. Like you can make them feel something.
Right.
I want people to either laugh, I want them to feel emotion, I want them to feel, agree with my opinion, disagree with my opinion, but I want them to give a fuck. And I want to do it in one take, and I want to be able to grab someone's attention. When I first start a video, instead of going, all right, everyone, I'm going to start it going, what's going on, everyone? It's the True Geordie, and you're fucking listening to me, mate. Do you know what I mean? And I made a point of that fairly early on, but it was the rest of it that I didn't catch on to until about a year ago.
Okay. Now, the one take thing, you stick to that.
I don't anymore. I mean, I record it pretty much in one take, but what I've realized since then is, why don't you learn how to edit? Learn how to do all the things that make up YouTube. But I think I do a lot less cuts than most people do.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the one take, but it's not a YouTube thing. As a traditional YouTuber, it's all the jump cuts, and people don't know what we're talking about. You know, if you watch a typical YouTuber with 5-10 million subs, there's just like they cut out any kind of a pause, which
it's become a style now, but
yeah.
it was bred out of people who are shit at speaking to a camera. So what it's there to do is to cover up all your fuck ups. But I don't need anything like that. I do a podcast with 2 hours, like we're doing right now, or one take, and I'm not having a go at the people who do that because I respect that. Not everyone's got their own thing, but my thing was being a good talker, and I just had to find a way to point that in the right direction. And talking about Newcastle had a ceiling, so I realised, all right, I can't just talk about Newcastle. I've got to talk about all the football teams, the whole Premier League, and then it went from there.
Continue watching this fascinating conversation for free by clicking on the link below to visit our website, and I'll see you on the inside.
It's not about being a millionaire, it's about not being frightened that I'm going to end up back where I was, because that's driven me. A lot of YouTubers, I feel like they're just having a laugh on camera, and I'm like, you don't know the fear I've got in me of being skint.